Welcome to the Jesus Culture Leadership Podcast, where we kind of sit down every week, our weekly version of come hang out in our living room, and we're going to have a conversation about leadership, ministry, and life. That's our tagline.
Yeah.
Come sit down.
You make a new tagline up every intro.
Oh, totally. I'm bored with taglines. So, do you remember Anthony Skinner? You wouldn't know this because you were too young. You were probably in middle school.
I remember Anthony Skinner.
No, Anthony Skinner though early on, and I still cannot find it online. I don't even think Anthony and Ross. It was like worship from the living room.
That sounds awesome.
It was a CD that he did. I mean, this is 25 years ago, or 30 years ago, or something like that. I should find out if you saw this one. I couldn't find it online the other day, where they're just in a living room and they record some worship. It was one of my all-time favorite albums. So that's what awesome. I imagine our podcast is. It's Ben and Becky
from
live from the living room, having random conversations.
Someone's podcast is probably like that.
Oh, yeah, I bet you it is. Well, great to have you wherever it is. This really is where we just are sitting down and chatting, talking through leadership. And I just love, I legitimately will hang out with anybody who is hungry to grow and go after God. So that's what we're doing. I just got back. Becky, have you been to YWAM Kona yet? Have you been to University of the Nations?
I feel like you know the answer and you're just wanting
to.
No,
here's what's funny though, because people I'm like, okay, I'm going to YWAM. I'm going to Hawaii. It's the Big Island, which is phenomenal. Kona's phenomenal, but it's like the island that's kind of lava. The whole island's just kind of lava. But it's Hawaii. It's wonderful. Didn't go to the beach once.
What?
I'm there to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ to a bunch of young adults that are hungry.
You sound like a martyr.
I did do dinner on the beach, though. I did dinner on the water twice. It was spectacular, the sunset, all that type of stuff. But I don't know if you've ever been. It's what Loren Cunningham, the vision he had, not only for YWAM, but in particular for University of Nations, is really...
It's amazing.
It's just inspiring. There's a handful of times you go to like Oral Roberts University, ORU, and you kind of think of Oral Roberts' just vision for this. I remember going on to Heritage USA, which is where Morningstar Ministries is now, but that was Jim Baker's vision for a theme park down there in South Carolina. And you just walk around and I am inspired by anybody who has a vision and executes it.
I've been to Christ for the Nations, and it's very similar.
It's just
wow,
big vision, big execution.
Yeah,
is like really inspiring for me. So I love going out there, and there's something. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to complain about it. But before I complain about it,
you're going to get on this podcast and complain about going to Kona.
Yes, I'm going to complain about it, but only because everybody knows my heart and loves me on here, and I'll tell you why I don't complain about it that much. I love going out there. Andy Bird, first of all, who is a dear friend. There's actually a couple of missionaries out there that we support, but Andy, he's one of my covenantal guys. And what they're doing at Fire and Fragrance is really actually special. It's really special. We've had a ton of our young people have gone out to Fire and Fragrance. Life change, life transformation.
It's amazing.
But and there's something about, if you've never been, there's something about getting around 18, 19, 20-year-olds who not all of them are going to end up on the mission field. But about a third of them will actually end up long-term on the mission field. And they are at the beginning of their journey of like, when you ask them, you're like, what are you going to do? And they're like, I'm going to reach Muslims for Jesus.
It's amazing.
You know, and you're just like, wow, where? They're like, I don't know. Somewhere.
I love it.
So, Jordan, Northern Africa.
It's amazing.
And so they're going to go they just want to go lay their lives down. And if you're a part of YWAM, this is an interesting thing, is that we're in a world where fame and fortune is a temptation.
Yeah.
Well, it's not always a temptation because it's not like you can make that happen, but it's kind of something that feels like, ooh, you could become a famous preacher.
Yeah.
And you could actually make some money off this.
Yeah.
Because that's what I've seen on Instagram.
You actually can make it happen. I'd argue. I think people can. Yeah.
But here's the deal. We're around people that make it happen, but the majority of churches in America are 60 people.
Yes.
And so pastors in America, if you become a pastor, you're not becoming wealthy and famous.
Yeah, right.
We know a handful of wealthy and famous pastors, but that doesn't, for the most part, people aren't. But it's still, so it's a temptation. But if you're at YWAM, you're not there to get famous or rich at all. Like, you just know it. Like, you're not nobody's going to know who you are, and you're not going to make any money at all.
Yeah.
So there's like this just real purity of kind of their abandoned yes to the Lord. You know, it's a young yes, but it's real. And I love it. I love getting around that stuff. I'm like, dude, you guys are just going to go give your lives on the mission field
I listened
somewhere.
to a recording. I don't know what it was. They were some prayer meeting or worship, and they were just chanting the Count Nicholas Zinzendorf.
Oh, yeah.
Preach the gospel, die, and be forgotten.
Yeah, I want to preach the gospel, die, and be forgotten.
And that's kind of the motto.
Love. I think we need more of that. So I love it. They're in every nation of the earth. What they're doing is incredible. I think they're in every nation of the earth. But they've got 1,400 bases or something around the world. All started by Loren
Cunningham. Like, that's what he saw.
Yeah, so it's pretty incredible. They're still going strong. But so you go out to YWAM. It's an honor to go, and it's an honor to sit with all these young people and just pour into them and teach them and equip them. It's a ton of teaching.
What did you teach?
I taught on discipleship and then the word.
Nice.
So really went after discipleship with them. But here's the problem. This is where my non-missionary side comes in. I don't know if you know stories of Heidi Baker, and I could be wrong, Heidi. If you're listening, I'm pretty sure Heidi Baker listens to our podcast.
I've heard Heidi's story. She came through Bethel when I was there.
Yeah,
tons.
And I love Heidi, and Heidi's a hero. But I think she had her kids taking showers, cold showers, because they were missionaries, in a bucket with just cold water and all that. So these missionaries are so hardcore, which I love. I actually think we need more of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're doing this for the sake of the gospel. Willing to sacrifice everything.
Absolutely.
A lot of these guys, missionaries and military people I've heard, they're on the mission field sacrificing all that stuff, and then they come home, and it's like they come home to America that's Disneyland, and they're standing in line at Starbucks. They have a hard time reintegrating because they're in line at Starbucks, and somebody's complaining about the temperature of their coffee.
Yeah.
So military and missionaries, they come back, they're like, what is going on?
Yeah, so true.
So I'm sharing all that to say is, but I'm at YWAM, and it's really humid. It's really humid, and I'm not used to humidity, right? And then they put you on the base. You stay at the base, but Hawaii doesn't really have air conditioning. Not just the base, a bunch of homes are we don't have air conditioning. I was talking to people that are I own a home, I have no air conditioning, and so you have this little fan on you, and you're just sticky and hot all night long. And you're trying to take a break to go back, and you're teaching all morning, then you've got another session with leaders, and you got to go have this thing. And so you're trying to get a quick break. And you know how you go back to your hotel room whenever you're traveling, and you get that quick break, you relax, you do whatever. And I'm just in my hotel room, sticky, shower doesn't fully get hot. Is this whole thing. And the whole time,
it's good for you. You need to go a couple times a year.
I want to complain, but I'm like,
you can't complain with the preach the gospel, die, and be forgotten crowd. You can't complain with the people.
I'm like, you're going to give your lives for the gospel in the deserts of North Africa.
Yeah.
Is anybody have an air conditioner? Is there anywhere that I could just please take a break in an air-conditioned room for 5 minutes?
The only reason that this is even allowed and you're not going to get death threats right now is because you're aware of how terrible it is.
Lightning bolts.
You're aware of how horrible.
Next time I go out there, would it be weird if I'd be like my wife when we used to go take youth on retreats or to different things, and lots of times we'd go to place and everybody be sleeping in the church, on the gymnasium floor, except for CJ. She'd go get a hotel.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
She wasn't having it. She'd go get a hotel. I'm going to be that guy. Be like, guys, give your life for the gospel. If you need me, I'm going to be at the Four Seasons, just 30 minutes up the road.
That's terrible.
They've got air conditioning, room service.
I don't have any missionary in me. I just can't.
Did I tell you that story about Raya, my middle one, she's 22, but she was probably 12. We were doing this Pacific Rim tour. So it was Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand. And I think we get into Singapore or something. And every place we went into, it was the band and myself. We were preaching, doing worship, all that stuff. And every place we went into, there would be somebody that was assigned to our family, just to make sure that, hey, what do you guys need? Kind of pop in. And then they would have baskets for my kid, toys and food and things like that, trying to take care of our family. And I remember at Raya, she's probably about 12 years old. We're in there, we get in, it's about 10 o'clock at night. And she goes, Dad, I'm hungry. I said, sorry, sweetie, everything's closed, but we've got some food in the baskets if you want it. She goes, I don't want anything there. And there was a girl, I think her name was Amanda or something, who had been assigned to us. And she goes, go ask that lady or something to go get us some food. She's 12. She goes, go ask that lady to go get us some food. And I am mortified. I'm like, my kids What is happening? We're out preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ in the nations of the earth. And my daughter's like, go get that lady to go get us some food at 10 o'clock. And I was like, that is not who we are. That is not what we do. You eat whatever's in this basket. It was
Get
petrifying.
in the cold shower right now.
I know, Kelly. I wanted to go about pull a Heidi Baker. You know what you're gonna do? And then, but here I am in Wiley. I'm going.
It's sticky.
I'm just sitting in cars because they have air conditioning units. I'm just sitting in a minivan because it's got an air conditioning unit. So I don't even know.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how we segue into the topic, but you should go out there. You'd love it.
I'm going to Hawaii in March.
Yeah, but you're going to a conference. You're not going to YWAM.
It's
They're going to put
true.
you up in a really nice resort. It won't count at all.
Yeah.
It
true.
won't count at all.
No, it
You'll
won't.
take a break. You'll go to the beach. You preach one time in the morning, and then you go hang out in the afternoon.
It's true. We're at the Kahlua Ballroom.
Yes, yeah, I don't want to hear about it. Hey, one of the things that we've talked about, conversations that we've had, and much of this podcast is really just about what conversations we're having with leaders or ourselves. One of the things that I've found that's interesting is sometimes I hear people talking about, or people ask a lot of questions around the need for balance. Like, how do you find balance in your life? As a mom, I'm sure you get the question quite a bit as a mom in ministry about balance.
Number one question I get, how do you balance motherhood and ministry?
Yeah. So on the leadership podcast, talking about leadership, I actually don't think balance is what we're to be going after. I think sometimes people are wanting to know, like, what's the right amount of this and the right amount of this, and how do you kind of put ingredients together and get the right balance? Or, I need 50% of this and 30% of that. But I found in my life, and scripturally as I read scripture, that it's not actually about balance. It's about order. So when I look at somebody's life, it's not like, do you have the right family to ministry ratio in your life?
Right.
Do you have the right family, ministry, work,
Rest.
social, rest, hobby balance?
Yeah.
For me, there's a few things, but for me, it's about order. I want to know, are your priorities right?
Yeah, that's good.
Right, and this is what I think. The Bible doesn't talk about balance. It talks about seek the kingdom first.
Yep.
It talks about, here's the first thing.
Yeah.
Seek the kingdom above all else. Seek the kingdom first. Everything else will work out. So at some level, and I remember when I got in, people would ask me about like, they said, hey, is it hard to turn things, when I had little kids, is it hard to turn things down in order to take care of your family? I remember a young guy was asking me this. It was about traveling. It was about, and that was the thing. It was exciting to travel. It felt valuable to travel. It felt like that's the pinnacle when you get invited somewhere to go speak. He's like, is it hard to turn that stuff down? And what was interesting, I thought, it's not because I'm not trying to figure out how to balance my life. I've already set the priorities in my life.
Yeah.
Family being God's at the top, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm saying family is like the Lord very much says your number one priority is to take care of your family.
Yep.
And so I remember when I had my priorities all switched. And I think that's what happens. I didn't change. When I had a kid, it's not like I readjusted the balance in my life.
Okay, I'm going to spend now 80% of my time with this kid and 20% I'm going to travel. Yeah.
The priorities shifted. I want to do stadiums. I want to change the world. I want to make a difference. I want to preach. I had a kid and I thought, oh, the greatest thing I will ever do with my life is raise this child.
Yeah.
It was first 2 weeks of Ellie's life.
Yeah.
I think the greatest thing I'll ever do with my life. And so it was priorities that switched for me, not necessarily balance.
Yeah, I think it's so true. It's such a good conversation. If we could just detonate the word balance and the goal for balance. I know for myself, I spent a lot of years spinning like in a hamster wheel trying to achieve balance. And until I realized, whether it's, I don't know, through mentorship or life, wisdom, all of them combining, balance is not going to be achieved. It's the wrong pursuit. The pursuit is not balance, because it's like, people want to view life as a scale, or that's kind of how I always see. I always get that question: how do you balance motherhood and ministry? Says if it's a scale and I'm going to have an equal amount of ministry, that would mean I have an equal amount of ministry to motherhood. And then everything else that you had in life, and this pursuit of trying to get everything balanced is exhausting, because it's not what we're called to establish. But priorities and order is. And so I find when I have the right priorities and things begin to fall into place, and then I'm no longer thinking ratios and amount, it's focus, attention,
Yes.
right? And all of those things become when my life is prioritized and in order, I feel balanced.
Yes.
That's and I'm not thinking, oh, this is how much I travel. This is how much I'm at home. I just, oh, this is the right order of things. The things that require most of my attention and most of my valuable, energy are getting what they need to. And so I think that's such a good conversation to have for leaders, especially today. Everybody's so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And we're busier, and we know that. There's technology and life is busier, and we're not just on farms
I don't know
anymore.
if we're busier. We're more distracted.
Yeah, we are. I think, there's just a lot going
We
on.
are busier. Yes, I understand the concept, but it's like it's not like there's more things.
It's true. Yeah.
We're just way more. There is more things, but it's not like there's.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, you got to think life is easier now. So,
Yeah.
But we're busy, and we're distracted and we're overwhelmed.
Think about 60 years ago,
Yeah,
you had to wash your clothes.
Yeah, like make your own,
Or your
grow
grandma's.
your own food.
Yeah, our grandma's generation, or maybe even a little before them. But they're literally hand washing a bunch of their stuff,
Yeah,
or
it's so
dishwashers running around, or
Yes.
it was a different kind of.
Yeah, so we're more automated, and probably life is easier, but it's more distracted. And so I find, and not just young leaders, they're overwhelmed. And because I'm overwhelmed, I'm looking at the ratios and I'm trying to get balance. And you just got to go, no, it's not that you're overwhelmed. It's what you're saying. You're out of order.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel overwhelmed if you have we'll just use an easy example is if you have a family and they're not your priority, you're going to feel overwhelmed and out of balance because it's not God's design. And so I think the better question is, is your life in order? So
What's
let's talk
the
about that.
priorities? Yeah.
How do people prioritize things?
Well, I would say a couple things. How do you prioritize things? One is this. I think the story of Mary and Martha is really profound. She chose the most important things. So you do have to be able to go, what are the most important things in my life? You prioritize around that. So if you haven't determined that my relationship with God, my relationship with my family, like these are the most important things, and I have to prioritize around that, the order of that. And I think intimacy is so important because if a lot of people are like, well, if I just spend time with Jesus all the time,
I won't get anything done.
I won't get anything done. But it actually doesn't work like that. Like when you spend time with Jesus, he looks at you and says, hey, I want you to go take care of people now. Mm-hmm. Like when you look at Scripture, you draw close to him and he says, listen, I love you. Now here's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
Go take care of other people. Go love other people. Go give away what I've given you.
Yeah.
So Heidi Baker, actually we talked about Heidi Baker, she has this concept of breathing in and breathing out. I come in, I get with him and I breathe in, but then there's a breathing out as well. So I think that if you really focus on intimacy with the Lord above all else, so you seek him above everything else, the closer you get to him, I don't think the more monk-like you become.
Yeah.
I don't think the more withdrawn you become,
Yeah.
because the closer you get to him, he says, now go love people. Now go give away what I've given you. Now go take care of your family. Now go, he's sending us.
He gives you your priorities.
Yes, we're with him and he sends us. We're with him and he sends us.
Yeah.
We're not just with him. There's a sending that happens he gives you your priorities.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big one. A lot of people that deal with burnout, I just tell them, I think if you are burning out, there's a handful of reasons we could talk about, but one of them is, I just think at the end of the day, Jesus is not, if you truly said, I am purely obeying Jesus, then you won't reach burnout because he's not positioning you to burn out.
Yeah, that's a
He's
good
not
word.
giving you more than you can do. So it means then that I'm taking on more than I should.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to get with him and say, what is it that you're asking of me? What is it that you're asking of me? Because obviously, if I'm burning out, it's because I'm doing more than you're asking me to do. So that intimacy thing for me is just consistently wanting to know, what is it that you're asking of me? And I think for me, seasons is big as well. I think that there are seasons where this is why I think life is out of balance a lot. I don't think it's out of balance if you look at it in totality. But if you look at a farmer, his life looks very out of balance.
Right.
He's not saying, I give 30% to my family, and I give 40% to this. During harvest, it's 95% is we're going to go get, it's sun up to sundown, we're
harvesting.
working, and we're not going to lose this harvest, and we're going to do whatever it takes. But that's not sustainable for 12 months, but he knows it's not 12 months.
It's a good word.
They know, like, no, we go push hard for however long. I don't know much about farming,
Yeah.
but for 2 months or however long it is, this is harvest season, and we go hard.
Yeah, that's a good word.
But then when it gets into winter, it's not like that. Sun goes down a lot earlier. They're sitting around the fire with their family. They're more just kind of tinkering with the equipment to make sure it's ready to go. But you would look at a farmer and go, your life looks out of balance during harvest season.
So season shifts priorities.
So seasons shift priorities. Do you know what season you're in? So my wife and I will recognize this. For me, whether it's travel or ministry or whatever else, we'll know right now I'm in the middle of a push. We'll know there's a push right now. The Lord has me in a season where there's a lot going on. But this is not how I'm going to live the rest of my life. This is not a sustainable thing. But for this season, this is what the Lord has. And we know we'll come into another season of real rest and not as much and home with the family and things like that. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
So makes sense, yeah.
And so I think sometimes people think it's just always, I'm like, no, I think seasons shift. Your priorities don't shift as far as the kingdom, as far as seeking God above all else. But
Yeah.
I remember I came home one day. This is a big story, but I'm 10 years into marriage, have little kids, and was traveling, really started picking up traveling. I'm an Enneagram 3, so I love influence. So in the early days, travel felt like really validating or whatever
Yeah.
else. So I'm traveling, I'm doing all this type of stuff, and I come home and CJ's standing in the kitchen. I'll never forget it. And she said, "I don't like our life. I don't like our life. This isn't what I wanted." And I'm thinking, what are you talking about, man? Things are just cruising, man. We're killing it. And I realized, so I have mentors and fathers in my life and all this type of stuff. And so we just, after that conversation, I just shut everything down for 2 years. There was I still traveled, but with the family, because Jesus Culture, it's too much to get into, but I would bring the family with me when we would do Jesus Culture stuff. But I think there was a 2-year span where I was only away from my family for 2 nights.
Wow.
Over 2 years.
Wow.
And we just said, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And so shifted. And for 2 years then, it was like, this is what I need to be doing. I'm not, I think I literally took 2 one-night trips. I popped up, spoke, and came back. But everything else, if I was traveling, it was because the whole family went with us or I wasn't traveling type deal.
Wow.
And I think that's what I'm talking about. You're just paying attention to that type of stuff. What season am I in? What are the priorities that are right now? Is my life in order? So
Yeah.
for me, it's out of balance. It's more an out of order issue for me.
It's so good. It's such a good word. I think the importance of 2 things. When you keep referring to when Jesus says, seek first the kingdom, I preached that passage not that long ago. And in preaching the passage, I actually thought it is about priorities. But what I actually uncovered is really the context of that passage. He's talking about anxiety. He's talking about the pursuit of materials and possessions and things that it's about what takes up your focus and your energy. But it's amazing is it's all about anxiety and an anxious mind and the toil there. And I just thought I came back to that when you said that of, yeah, when you are out of priority, when you're out of order, that is where that anxiety starts to come from or can come from, and the burnout and the overwhelm. And Jesus is going, hey, the cure to all of that, you don't have an anxious mind. Don't be anxious. Seek first the kingdom. And that's where that peace comes from. And you're in the center with Jesus in intimacy, receiving what's my priority for this season. And it's changing all the time. I think people who have a hard time with change need to really embrace that. I'm one of those people. I want it to look the same way all year. And I don't want it to shift. And it's just not realistic.
Not realistic.
Life doesn't work that way.
That's why I think you need community around you too. They're able to help navigate and go, hey, it's a different season, or hey, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Like, it's so hard when you're in the emotions of it all. I think this is a big one too. This is why, and I probably every single leadership podcast, I'm going to somehow bring up the issue of insecurity. Because if you are insecure, if you are looking for your identity and your security in something other than just Jesus, so if you have insecurity in your life, it's very hard to accurately look at priorities.
Yeah.
The farming example is just because I think the Bible is written with agricultural language. I just like if you are not going to want to not be in a how many negatives can I use? You are not going to not want to be in a season of harvest if you're insecure.
Yes. Yes.
I want growth all the time. I want harvest all the time because this is where I'm finding my identity. This is where I'm finding my acceptance. So when the Lord's like, well, you're not in a season of growth. Caleb Cole had a brilliant thing that he showed me one time around the different seasons, improving and growth, but not every season is a season of growth.
Yes, that's really good. But you need voices to help you discern that because on your own, you will this happened last year, 2 years ago. Doors started opening up for travel, and I made the really dumb mistake to think all of this is from the Lord. Every opportunity. So I said yes to every opportunity. Ended the year, I felt sick. My family's not doing great. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I was on a call with Danny Silk, and I had been processing with you. And Danny's like, why did you say yes to all of it? I said, well, I thought it was all from the Lord. And he said, total Danny fashion. He goes, not unless the Lord's trying to kill you.
Which maybe he is.
I was like, oh, what? This is just in my ignorance. He goes, not unless the Lord's trying to kill you. And I hadn't even entertained that thought. Of course, this is not all from the Lord. Some of this is just opportunity.
But if you're looking for your identity 100%. From that, and it is, in our world, for not everybody that's listening to this is in ministry, but in our world, in people wanting you to come speak, it feels validating. It feels like, it feels important. It feels whatever else. And if you're looking for your identity or security in something, then it's very hard to go, that's not the priority right now.
Yeah. And to just think that this was the biggest lesson I learned was, influence and opportunity does not equate God sending you.
Yeah.
And I wasn't having that Mary moment going to the feet of Jesus with every decision or opportunity, especially in really critical times, how young my family is, to ask, is this where I'm supposed to go? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing right now?
And I think it's a continual question we ask the Lord. So sometimes, I don't know, people that are really structured, they're like, I just want an answer and I want to implement that answer and I want to live out of that answer for the next 10 years.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, and this is a Bill teaching, but we're really glad that Abraham continued to listen to the Lord. Because he said, go sacrifice your son. And then he said, hey, I'm going to provide. You know what I'm saying? So we're really glad that Abraham continually was listening to the Lord. He wants relationship. It's progressive. It's moving along. And so that's the whole point. Sometimes the Lord says, hey, we're going to run hard. Family will be fine. We're going to run hard for a season. And then they're like, okay, we're running hard. And then he comes and goes, hey, listen, it's time to not travel at all.
Yeah.
Wait, it's time to not travel at all. You just told me to travel. Like, and so like personalities like you, you're like, can you just give me the formula?
Totally.
Let me implement the formula.
Yeah.
And then I'll go forward from there.
Absolutely.
And the Lord says, if I give you a formula, it's not relational anymore. It's not seasonal anymore.
It's not intimate.
It's not intimate
You don't need
anymore.
to come back to the feet of Jesus every day. And I think too, and we talk probably insecurity and comparison is going to come up all the time in these leadership podcasts because it's just what the struggle is. If you're looking to what everybody else is doing, that's not your priority. That's not your order.
And this is the concept of when it's busy, I complain. When it's not busy, I'm not content.
Yeah.
And we're looking at and that's the comparison issue of everything else.
Yeah, and you can't get your order from someone else's life.
Yes.
It's just that's what they're focusing on, and that's who knows what they've heard and what the Lord has told them or what they're doing. And so you have to stay mentors, community, intimacy with Jesus, and to just embrace that your priorities are going to change often.
Yes.
Your order is going to change.
Yeah. And again, we seek the kingdom above all else.
That'll never change.
You love the Lord God with all your heart. That's set in stone. That is the top priority always.
Yeah.
But then as I move towards him, he begins to show me what this season looks like. He begins to show me priorities in this season. He begins to give me directions and marching orders at some level.
Yeah, it's good.
You might say it's a season to sit right now.
It's good when that's brilliant. Abraham continued to listen because in one moment, sacrifice your son, the next don't. I'm in Luke right now. We're reading through the Gospels and Jesus even, within 3 years, it was don't tell anybody about this miracle. It's not my time. Okay, it is my time. Go ahead and share. It was just that
Jesus would all
he
the
was
time.
listening and the order and priorities shifting.
He'd be like, don't take a sword. Don't take a sword.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, don't
Tells
take anything with you. Hey, make sure you take something with
Yes,
you.
we just read that.
Yeah.
He said, remember when I told you to not take a knapsack or anything?
Yep.
Well, now you need to.
Yes.
And so the seasons shift.
So how do you determine priorities? How do you determine sub-priorities? How about we call them sub-priorities? How do
Right.
you determine sub-priorities? I think it requires relationship. I think it requires that we continually are with the Lord, listening, paying attention,
Yeah.
not ignoring things, not running so hard that we're not just sitting at the feet of Jesus as Mary did.
Yeah.
And because Jesus wasn't even rebuking Martha in that moment. It wasn't a rebuke.
Yeah.
He just,
was a
he calls us
redirection.
to serve. I mean, he actually tells us to do what Martha's doing
Yeah.
throughout the Gospels.
Yeah.
But he's saying Mary's recognizing she's connected to this moment of what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's chosen what's important. And so it's that type of thing. It's why sometimes people go like, well, how do you structure your life? And I'm like, I don't. And some people have more grace than I do. I've got friends that I gave them advice early on. I'm like, dude, you won't be able to do it. You cannot travel like you're traveling with your family. And they did. And it's been fine.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, there's just a grace on your life. There's an assignment on your life that's just not on my life. And so
Right.
sometimes it's just like, you got to go get with the Lord. You got to listen to the Lord. You got to walk this thing out. And just constantly saying, and can I be content?
Yeah.
Can I be content in winter? And can I not complain in harvest?
Yeah. I think too, as leaders, just to walk away from this going, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you probably don't have the right priorities. Or if you're trying to pursue balance,
Yeah.
just forget balance for a minute. Oh my gosh, for all the women listening, the balance is just, you're just going to exhaust yourself and be grumpy the entire time trying to chase. It's like chasing a ghost. There's no balance to be found. But when I shifted to ordering my life differently, you can do the assignment with peace. We kind of think frazzled, anxious, overwhelmed, running from the thing to the next is like a badge of honor. It means you're doing
Yeah.
something right. That is not, Jesus says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Peace I leave you. Like these are things we're meant to just actually.
Yeah, 100%.
So can you have that full of a plate and fulfill your mission from a place of peace? Absolutely.
All right. Well, always good to hang out, guys. Listen, you should come hang out with us in person.
In the living room.
We've got 4 conferences a year that we're doing that we'd love to have you be a part of. One is we do our pastors conference in January in Sacramento. If you're a pastor, a church leader, or part of a team, we'd love to see you come. And then
I had a pastor ask me, she deemed me, she said, I want you to be honest, is it worth it?
Yeah, there we go. Is it worth it? I just sat with a pastor from Virginia, and he's telling me all his heart. And I said, dude, and he's coming, he's bringing his team in January. I said, you're going to find your tribe.
Yeah.
Because you're going to find a whole bunch of other people that are hungry for what you're doing and equipped. He's asking questions. What do we do here? What do we do this? I said, I think I don't know how many we have. We have 18, 19 breakout speakers of pastors and leaders. And yeah, so is it worth it? 100% worth it. I'm not just saying that's because it's ours.
I know.
And so we do that in January, and then we do the UK version of that in May.
Yep.
So we're going to be in London in May. And so we'd love to have you come out there if you're in England or Europe. And then we do a youth conference, My City.
Yep.
It's not My City anymore. It's
We
Awakening.
changed it.
We
Awakening
changed the name
first
this
year.
year.
Awakening Youth Conference.
Awakening Youth Conference is happening in March. And then we do our annual main conference in September here in Sacramento as well. So listen, I love that you're listening, but come hang out with us in person as well.
Yep.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week.